multiliteracies was coined by the New London group, sorry, more than a decade ago. A group of 10 educators met and advocate a new approach to literacy pedagogy in response to the change in the globalized communication environment. They propose pedagogy of multiliteracies to broaden approaches to include multimodal practices, combining linguistic, visual, audio, gesture, spatial modes. Recently, it has been applied to understanding of geographical, historical, political, economical, health, cultural literacies in the context of social education. So the concept of multiliteracies has been extended way beyond language and culture studies to address scientific multiliteracies, just as a side note. Now, the concept of synesthesia is very useful in grasping multiliteracies. So conventionally, the synesthete is the kind of a person who can appreciate sounds, colors, or words with two more senses simultaneously. So synesthesia is where people have these powerful associations and feelings across different moods, across different senses. For example, Kandinsky is known to have the synesthesia. He believed that colors triggers particular sounds or musical notes and vice versa. Perhaps because of his predisposition, he was the first artist to take a crucial step towards abstract art, known to be the originator of the abstract art. And so this painting was done soon after he attended a concert in Munich 1911. We want to expand this concept of synesthesia to mean something much more broad called mode shifting. Look, we are constantly operating across multiple modes. We switch between one mode to the others. For example, in Aboriginal culture, the visual mode of representation is much richer and more evocative than linguistic alone. So imagine something, okay, now I'm going to say a few words, which is the sounds of cicada. What goes in your mind? So you got the mental image, right? So now I'm going to show you a picture I took. So this is a photo of the entrance of the park near my childhood home in Japan. When I was young, I used to go there almost every day to play, especially during the summer break. And there was a large trees in the park, and I vividly remember the high-pitched, piercing chorus of cicada in the summer. So when I said the sound of cicadas, your interpretation was you brought together all sorts of images you had in your life. For me, the phrase and this picture are saying the same thing. So the picture is representing cicada to me and to myself. So synesthesia is about transferring meaning from one mode to the other. And one of their argument, the New London groups, is that effective learning involves this mode swapping or mode switching. So we really should aim for this as an objective. So unlike traditional literacy, now this broader conception of literacy becomes a tool for representation and in a tool for thinking as well. And by the way, this mode switching is not just for literacy education. For example, if I'm not doing an epidemiological study, and if I don't put in some pictures, if I don't draw diagrams, if I don't build visualization of the data that I got, and if I don't describe it in the words as well. So if I didn't do any of those things, even missing one, I haven't built a complete picture of what it is I want to represent in about the study or experiment that I just did. So mode shifting deepens my thinking, my understanding, and it builds my representational capacity around science as a discipline. So in other words, this is a very powerful cognitive process, and we do ourselves a great disservice by stripping literacy back to just alphabetical literacy alone. So this is one of the most thought-provoking, interesting scientific paper I encountered. This is a collaboration between a mathematician and artist who attempted their intriguing questions, which is what it would look like and what would feel like to break free from our usual notions of space and dimension to a new realm where negative dimensional space makes sense, which I already lost at this point. But they argue that this revolution has already taken place in topology in pure mathematics. But to date, the story hasn't been made accessible to the public. So they try to demonstrate performance, also visualizing exercise as a pedagogical alternative to conventional learning environment. So the approach or way of thinking to express in this ambiguous form, even though it is still not fully comprehensible, is exactly what I would envision for a project and it needed in intergenerational learning to express what would it look like and what it would be feel like. So here are more couple example of mode switching or multiliteracies. As you know, it is not a new practice. So around the 17th century, a group of artists in Japan invented the art of scattered writing as shown. This was used to change the pace of reading and they used the art of calligraphy in juxtaposing with the painting to create a specific poetic effect and aesthetic dimension to the poem. So it is fascinating how this poem, this inscription, can transform the way you read a painting. So those artists took a first step to make innovation to add a new level of emotional effect to the poem. This art of scattered writing makes poem look almost like a landscape painting. So here's another example of multiliteracies by combining text, image, fashion. So this summer fashion features this poem celebrating longevity and happiness interspersed with flowers and plants of the four seasons. Look, along the hem, notice the spring flowers, and above them, there is a wisteria and summer plants. Towards the middle, there's autumn and maple leaves, and then around the neckline, on the sleeves, you will see the winter pine sapling motif. Have you seen this painting by Albrecht Dürer, who is regarded as the greatest German Renaissance artist? He was also a mathematician. So this still like painting entitled Tufts of Cowslip looks very familiar to us today. It looks almost like one of those botanical art, which started much later in the 18th century. He was known to be the first painter who painted something so ordinary and paid such a keen observation of nature on such an intimate scale. Apparently, he digged out this plant and brought it back to his studio and painted in gouache. So this painting was done when he was 55 years old, 2 years before his death. And I think this is another great example of innovation that individual artists made a big impact, not only in the field of art at the end of the Middle Ages, but also invites us to recognize for the first time that art represents artists' thoughts about life. And painting like this, great reminder of how extraordinarily commonplace can be and how art at its best reveal the world to us in that way. So there are many more examples of multiliteracies in history that people